I'm the heir to the wealthiest family in Kingsport City. But my father, Richard, has more illegitimate children than anyone can count. Afraid I'd become a target for those clawing at the family fortune, my mother, Victoria, hid me away. She gave me a different last name, tucked me into a modest neighborhood, and enrolled me in a public high school where I blended in like any other ordinary kid. Or so we thought. Even under the radar, I couldn't escape being singled out. One day, the queen bee of the school strutted across the courtyard, kicked me to the ground, and announced to anyone within earshot. "Watch and see, I'm about to get engaged to the future heir of the Kingsport elite." She had no idea. The one she was bragging about marrying, was me. My name is Ethan Crown. I go by my mother's surname. I've never met my father, Richard. According to Mom, he's a brilliant bastard. Her words, not mine. But brilliance doesn't mean a thing to me. The man never showed his face, never made an effort. As far as I'm concerned, he might as well be dead. Dead's just fine by me, Mom always says. She raised me on her own, and she's nothing like the other moms I know. There's a polish to her, an effortless elegance in the way she moves, the way she speaks. She's never loud, never frazzled, always composed. You'd never mistake her for a suburban housewife. She ran the house with a kind of quiet authority. We had rules, so many rules. But she didn't just care about grades or clean rooms. She taught me business sense, strategy, how to read people and protect myself in a world that wouldn't always be fair. She was always working, something about her owning a company, though she never offered much detail. Still, every time we had to fill out the parent occupation line at school, she made me write worker. Nothing more. She never once came to a parent-teacher conference. That job went to our housekeeper, Mrs. Ward. Eventually, people just assumed Mrs. Ward was my mother. Some kids said I was her miracle child, born late in life. Others figured I was adopted. One kid swore I was the son of a convicted felon, and that my real dad was in prison for murder. Let them say what they want, Mom told me once. You focus on being you. So I did. Just Ethan. That's all I needed to be. There's a newspaper clipping pinned to the wall above my bed. The headline screams in bold black print. Sterling Capital Group celebrates birth of firstborn son, Liam arrives to global cheers. I was born on that exact same day. Kingsport Central High isn't exactly an elite private school, but for kids from working-class families, it's the kind of place where dreams are built brick by brick. A stepping stone. A shot at something more. For a lot of students here, becoming the first in their family to go to college is the ultimate goal, and some actually make it. I've done all right for myself too. I've always ranked in the top 3 in the entire school. But I've never been number 1. Never show all your cards, Mom always says. Second place, third, even fifth is fine. But never first. Don't let the spotlight land on you. She taught me to play it safe. To fly just under the radar. One afternoon during break, the classroom buzzed with chatter. Did you guys hear? Liam, the heir to Sterling Capital, is turning 18. Word is, half of Kingsport's high society is going to that party. I lay on my desk, face buried in my folded arms, trying to squeeze a few minutes of rest from the noise. So what? Someone drawled. I've known for weeks. His family already arranged our engagement. The room exploded into a chorus of gasps and high-pitched shrieks. The voice belonged to Sloane, a girl who had technically been held back a year, though no one dared mention it. She was the daughter of a powerful local business mogul, and she ruled Kingsport Central like she owned the place. Because, in a way, she did. Push her the wrong way, and she'd shove your head into a toilet. Literally. Teachers and the principal mostly looked the other way. Her family donated more money to the school each year than the annual science budget. Wait, seriously? You're engaged to Liam, one girl squealed. Sloane tossed her hair and smirked. Why would I joke about that? No way, another girl cried. That means you don't even need to stress about the SATs. Who cares about college when you're marrying into sterling capital? That's the dream, right? Haley chimed in. She was Sloane's most loyal lapdog, the kind of girl who laughed at jokes before they were finished and parroted every word Sloane said like gospel. Our Sloane's gonna be a billionaire's wife. Don't forget us when you're living in a mansion, someone else added. The class swarmed around her, voices rising in a storm of praise and flattery. And Sloane? She just stood there soaking it in, beaming like the queen she believed she was. Mind moving? You're stepping on my desk. The voice was quiet, cool, and razor-sharp. I cracked one eye open. Sunlight poured through the windows, and standing in it, like a blade of light, was Ava. Class rep, top of the class. The one who always beat me by just a few points. Oh, look who it is, Sloane cooed. Didn't see you there, Miss Class President. Her tone dripped with mock sweetness, but her feet didn't budge. In fact, she deliberately ground her heel into Ava's desk one more time, slow and spiteful. Sloane didn't like being interrupted, especially not in front of her audience. And someone like Ava, someone who never played along? That made her a target. Noise disruption, instigating chaos, sitting on furniture not meant for seating, Ava said evenly, loud enough for the whole room to hear. All of that goes on the student behavior record. She was the only one in class who dared to stand up to Sloane. Two queens, from very different kingdoms, one born into power, the other earning it inch by inch. Oil and water. Oh, Ava, Sloane sneered, stepping in close, her voice low and menacing. Been a while since I put you in your place. Getting brave, huh? Threatening a classmate, Ava replied, unshaken. That goes on the record, too. You little. Sloane snapped. She grabbed a book off a nearby desk and hurled it straight at Ava, already winding up to slap her across the face. Good morning, Mr. Carter. I shot to my feet and shouted toward the door. Good morning, Mr. Carter, the class echoed, almost reflexively. Sure enough, Mr. Carter stood at the doorway, mug of coffee in hand. He'd clearly been standing there for a while, listening, but made no move until now. He cleared his throat. Ahem. Settle down, everyone. Let's get started. Without acknowledging anything that had just happened, he stepped into the room and began walking to his desk. Sloane froze mid-swing, then slowly lowered her hand. Her eyes locked on Ava, cold and seething. You're dead, she hissed, then stormed back to her seat. Mom always told me to keep my head down. Stay out of messes that don't involve you, she'd say. Avoid trouble when you can. But watching Ava stand there, completely alone, facing off against someone like Sloane, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Maybe I didn't do much. Just called out at the right moment. Just broke the rhythm. But sometimes, that's all it takes to keep someone from getting hurt. After school, I found my bike in the rack behind the school, rear tire slashed clean through. I didn't need to guess who did it. Pushing the busted thing down the sidewalk, I started the long walk home. When I turned into the alleyway I always cut through, I heard voices. You think you're better than me? Just 'cause you've got good grades, you think you're untouchable? Forget how I made you eat pavement last time. The scene stopped me cold. In the shadowed alley, Sloane and a pack of girls were kicking and stomping on Ava, who was crumpled on the ground, not even fighting back. Her hair was a mess, her glasses shattered a few feet away. Well, look who decided to show up, Sloane sneered when she saw me. The others stepped back slightly, still smirking. The brave knight himself, Haley chimed in, pointing at me with a laugh. What's the matter, trying to play hero again? That's adorable. You like saving people, huh? Sloane stepped on Ava's hand, grinding it under her boot. Go on, hero, save her again. Ava's face twisted with pain, but she didn't make a sound. Just clenched her jaw and took it. Hey, I called out. You still able to stand? I ignored Sloane completely. Spoke only to Ava. That made her furious. Oh, you've got some balls, don't you? She snapped. Think I'm invisible? She shoved Ava aside and came at me fast. Before I could brace myself, her boot caught me right in the gut and knocked me off my feet. The next thing I knew, she was standing over me with one foot pressing into my head. Haley joined in, kicking me hard in the ribs. A stray alley cat darted across, startled by the noise, and Sloane, because she's the kind of person who would, kicked it mid-run, sending it tumbling across the pavement. I started to push myself up, rage flaring in my chest. But Ava moved before I could. She shot up from the ground like lightning and grabbed Sloane by the hair, yanking her backwards with a force that didn't seem human. Sloane let out a shriek and hit the ground hard, her legs tangled beneath her, mouth open in shock. Ava stood over her, eyes calm, chest rising and falling. I've been holding that in for a long time, she said, spitting near Sloane's face. I just lay there for a second, stunned. Ava, quiet, composed, always top of the class Ava, had just wiped the floor with Sloane and her entourage like it was nothing. The same girl who'd just been getting stomped on minutes ago was now a storm in human form. You'll regret this. Sloane screeched as she scrambled to her feet, grabbing Haley on the way. They both turned to run, but Ava cocked her fist again. Sloane flinched, screamed, and sprinted off like her life depended on it. Never thought you had it in you, I said, still half stunned. My jaw had been hanging open since the fight, and I hadn't found a good reason to close it. Ava bent down and picked up the shattered pieces of her glasses, squinting up at me through the afternoon light. You say something? I said, if you can fight like that, why'd you let Sloane and her crew walk all over you? She finally heard me that time. Just gave a shrug, like it was no big deal. For the money, she said flatly. What? I blinked. Turns out, Sloane and her gang had a pattern. Act like monsters, then pay off the damage afterward. Hush money, guilt money, whatever made the problem go away. It's how they stayed untouchable. Every time Sloane beat me up, Ava said, brushing dirt off her skirt, she handed me something like $500 afterward. You're serious? Her face didn't change. No shame, no apology. Just that same deadpan calm. It's just a beating, she said. I can take it. I stared at her, not knowing what to say. She saw the look on my face and rolled her eyes, like I was the one being dramatic. Look, it's not like I enjoy it, she said. But you take a few bruises and you walk away with rent money? Sometimes it's worth it. I couldn't believe it. Ava, brilliant, proud Ava, had been letting herself get hit for cash. So what changed? I asked. Why fight back this time? She paused, then glanced at me with a look I couldn't quite read. Her voice came quieter this time. A little tired. A little annoyed. You, idiot. Me? If you hadn't shown up, I would have taken the hit, gotten my cash, and walked away. But you had to go and mess it up. There was no heat in her voice. Just dry resignation. So what, this is my fault now? A little smile twitched at the edge of her mouth. She was trying to take the pressure off me. Let me off the hook. Thanks, though, she added quietly. I watched her crouch again, carefully collecting the fragments of her broken glasses like they were worth something. They're done for, I said. Let it go. It's fine, she muttered. Some pieces are still intact. I'll glue them. They'll hold, for a while. You're seriously gonna wear Franken glasses? I'll buy new ones, eventually, she said, adjusting the mangled frame on her face. Just gotta wait till I get paid. That stopped me. I remembered hearing rumors, bits and pieces from classmates. Ava's dad had owned a small company. Things were decent for a while, until they weren't. Bankruptcy, illness. He couldn't work anymore. Now her whole family scraped by on government aid and whatever Ava could earn between shifts. That's why she studied like her life depended on it, because it did. Her GPA wasn't just pride. It was survival. Scholarships were her only ticket out. Forget it, I said. Come on. I'm getting you new ones. Before she could argue, I grabbed her wrist and started walking. Hey, wait, what are you doing? There's a glasses place by the mall, I said. You're not walking around like Mr. Magoo till payday. She looked at me, skeptical. Where'd you get the money for this? What, don't think I've got it like that? I said, pushing the door open with as much swagger as I could fake. I swept my arm toward the store like some big spender in a movie. Go nuts. Pick anything you want. I regretted it immediately. Turned out, this dumpy little glasses place charged $500 for the most basic frames. While Ava was already in the back getting her eyes checked, I stood at the register, silently cursing the universe and pulling out every last crumpled dollar from my savings stash. Birthday cash, spare change from skipped lunches, gone in an instant. This place looks expensive, Ava whispered when she came out. You sure we shouldn't just go? Expensive? I laughed too loudly and shoved the receipt deep into my pocket. Nah. Barely a scratch. She walked over holding a sample frame, no lenses yet, trying it on in front of the mirror. Something about her looked different. Not just the glasses. Maybe it was the light, or the way her freckles stood out more without her usual lenses hiding them. Her skin looked even paler, framed by those long lashes. It was the first time I'd ever really looked at her. They look good, I said. A smile bloomed across her face, wide, proud, and just a little self-conscious. When I get paid, I'll pay you back. You don't have to. No, I do. I can't take something like this for free. She tugged gently at the sleeve of my jacket, eyes serious now. Fine, I said. Then let's call it payment. Payment, she repeated. For services rendered, I said. I'm hiring you. As my bodyguard. I was half joking. Just trying to take the pressure off. It felt weird having a girl owe me money, like it made the whole thing transactional when it wasn't meant to be. But Ava? She took it seriously. From that day on, she really acted like she was on the job. She walked with me to and from school. Sat near me in the cafeteria. Showed up at my locker like clockwork between periods. She was everywhere. Just short of following me into the boys' bathroom. Maybe you can chill a little on the whole bodyguard thing? I offered one afternoon. She turned to me, face stone-cold serious. You're firing me? Forget I said anything. I sighed. The way she looked so determined, like protecting me was some sacred duty, it actually made me feel kinda bad for joking about it in the first place. One morning, I showed up at school and walked straight into a mess. Our stuff, mine and Ava's, had been dumped all over the hallway floor. Textbooks, folders, pencil cases, scattered like debris after a storm. I didn't need a name tag to know who did it. Ever since Ava flipped the tables in that alley and beat Sloane at her own game, the petty revenge hadn't stopped. Bugs in Ava's water bottle. One of my chair legs sawed halfway through. Used toilet paper, with actual shit on it, stuffed into our desk drawers. Sloane and her little army seemed to think they were waging some kind of justice crusade. But to me, it just felt like a toddler's tantrum. I spotted Ava crouched down ahead of me, silently picking up her books. Her face was blank, eerily calm. One of her perfect test papers lay underfoot, stomped, crumpled, the red 100% barely visible through the shoe prints. Nearby, a shredded workbook with my name on it had been torn into quarters. Well, well. Look who it is, the lovebirds. The cackling started around us, bouncing off the lockers. Didn't need to turn around to know it was Sloane and Haley. Ava said nothing. Just kept picking up her things, quiet and methodical. You two really are made for each other, Haley snorted, her voice soaked in mockery. I ignored them. I walked over and knelt beside Ava. Leave it, I said under my breath. But before she could answer, a voice rang out from the end of the hall. Ava. Ethan. My office. Now. Mr. Carter. We didn't even need to ask why. Sloane must have already run off to tell him some made-up story about us dating at school. As if that were a crime. Mr. Carter sat behind his desk, rubbing his shiny bald head like we'd given him a migraine. You've really let me down, he said, putting down his coffee mug with a sigh. You're seniors. College apps are right around the corner. You think this is the time to get distracted? He tried to keep his voice level. The whole I'm disappointed but understanding speech. I've always had high hopes for you both, he went on. Don't throw it all away over, whatever this is. But we both knew the truth, once someone slaps a label on you, it sticks. Doesn't matter how hard you try to explain, it just makes you look guilty. So neither of us said a word. We sat there in silence, shoulder to shoulder. And just like that, we lost an entire morning of class, locked in an office, punished for a rumor we couldn't even defend ourselves against. By the time we got back to class, Sloane and Haley were already waiting with grins like they'd rehearsed them. Well, look who's back, the lovebirds. Sloane called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Laughter rippled through the room. Hope nobody else gets any ideas. Haley added, like she was doing a public service announcement. It was childish. Predictable. But the worst part? It worked. That kind of taunting always did. After school, Ava still walked with me like nothing had happened. You know, I said, side-eyeing her, after everything Mr. Carter said, you're still walking me home? She shrugged. One thing's got nothing to do with the other. Besides, it's not like anything's actually going on between us. She said it so casually, like she hadn't just been dragged into a school-wide rumor mill. And if she was determined to keep playing bodyguard, there wasn't much I could do to stop her. When we reached the gate to my apartment complex, I turned to her. You can stop here. Usually, she'd drop me off all the way at my building's front door. We're already this close, she said, stepping inside the gate. What's another few steps? I sighed and followed her in. At this point, you might as well escort me to my room. At that, she turned sharply and raised her hand in mock professionalism. Sorry, sir. This bodyguard only covers perimeters. She paused, eyes sharp behind her glasses. Anything beyond that? That's personal security. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like she was quoting some shady agent from a crime drama. Costs extra. I blinked. Where do you even get this stuff? TV, she said, deadpan. I shook my head. You really need to cut back on that. Waving her off, I headed into my building. The stairwell lights were the old-school motion sensor kind, sensitive, but unreliable. Tonight, nothing turned on. First floor. Second floor. No matter how hard I stomped or clapped, the place stayed dark. Weird, I muttered. I pulled out my key and walked up to my apartment door. Just out of habit, I leaned down and looked through the peephole. Pitch black. My stomach dropped. Something felt wrong. That kind of wrong you don't reason with, just feel in your gut. Someone was inside. Mom had been out of town for a few days. That meant it was just me and Mrs. Ward. Usually, I ate dinner at school, so Mrs. Ward didn't stay overnight. She just came by every other day to clean up a bit. Today wasn't one of those days. Which meant the apartment should have been empty. And I had this habit, I always left the hallway light on before leaving in the morning. A small thing, but it gave the place a warm glow when I came home. A sign that everything was normal. But tonight, through the peephole? Nothing. No light. Just black. Like something was blocking it. Every instinct in my body screamed at once. I turned and bolted. Ran back down the stairs 2 steps at a time, heart pounding. As I hit the first floor, I heard it, footsteps, from above. I didn't wait to confirm. I yanked open the front door and made a break for it. But just as I threw the door wide, a hand shot out from the shadows. Strong. Fast. I barely had time to react before I was yanked sideways, dragged into the hedges next to the entrance. A cold hand clamped down over my mouth, smothering any sound I tried to make. And then I saw him. A man stepped out of the stairwell. Broad shoulders. Dressed in all black, with a hood pulled low over his head and a medical mask covering his face. I couldn't see his eyes. Couldn't see his expression. But I could see what was in his hand. A knife. He stood there for a few seconds, scanning the area, calm, calculating. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Whoever had pulled me into the bushes had done it just in time. We were completely hidden. The man eventually turned and jogged off, disappearing into one of the nearby alleyways. Only then did I realize how hard my heart was hammering. After a minute or two of silence, when I was sure the man wasn't coming back, I turned around to see who'd pulled me into the bushes. Of course, it was Ava. "He gone?" she whispered. I nodded. She slowly pulled her hand away from my mouth and exhaled sharply. Phew. That was way too close. Then she grinned. But if he had seen us, I was ready. Ready how? Ditched the glasses. What? You forget? I fight way better without these things. It's like a superpower. Right, I said, half laughing. Should have known. But seriously, I said more quietly, why were you still here? I'm your bodyguard, she replied, as if it were obvious. It's my job. She pointed toward my building. Every day, I wait down here till I see your bedroom light turn on. That's how I know you got inside safe. But tonight, she added, the light never came on. So I waited. And then I heard you running, and someone following you. I just stared at her. All this, because she'd taken that stupid bodyguard thing seriously. You learned all this from TV? I asked. She nodded. I gave her a thumbs up. Keep watching. We crouched there a little longer, hidden behind the shrubs, waiting to be sure the guy wasn't coming back. I exhaled, trying to keep my voice calm. Who the hell was that? No idea how he'd gotten into my apartment. But one thing was clear, he hadn't just wandered in. He was there for me. I turned to Ava, guilt creeping in. Sorry you got dragged into this. She blinked. You seriously haven't heard about the serial creep running around lately? Her tone shifted, low and serious now. They say he targets boys your age. I gave her a look. I'm turning 18 next week. Still counts, she said. It was dark, and the air was cold, but I couldn't help the small, grateful smile tugging at my mouth. If Ava hadn't been there. If she hadn't waited. That guy could have killed me. Thanks, I said. For saving my ass. Whatever that man wanted, his glinting knife made it pretty clear it wasn't anything good. That night, I didn't go back home. I found a 24-hour gym a few blocks away, snuck into the locker room, and crashed on one of the wooden benches in the back. It wasn't comfortable. But it was alive. And that was enough. After a sleepless night, I called my mom the next morning and told her what had happened. "Why didn't you call me last night?" Her voice on the other end was tight, urgent. "You told me not to call after dark." She paused. That was true. She had said that. "Don't go to school today. I'll send the driver to pick you up later." And just like that, she hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, my eyes drifting to the newspaper clipping still pinned beside my bed. Sterling Capital Group airborne, family celebrates, names him Liam. Sometimes, I wonder. Am I really Liam? Mom booked me into a hotel. Said it was just for a few days, until things cooled off. She called the school and told them I'd be out sick. I'd never stayed in a place like this before. The lobby ceiling soared 3 stories high, crowned with an enormous crystal chandelier that sparkled like a galaxy. I glanced at the price board by the concierge desk. The top-tier suites went for 5 figures a night. I'd never even seen that much money in my life. "Good evening, sir. May I take your bag to your room?" A hotel staff member approached with a practiced smile, reaching out politely. I hugged my backpack a little tighter. It was filled with textbooks and notebooks, nothing worth tipping over. "No thanks," I mumbled. "As you wish. Enjoy your stay." He bowed slightly and walked off. I immediately regretted it. Now I had no idea where I was going. I looked down at the room keycard, 8712. 8712? There are that many floors? I eventually found the elevators and stepped inside, still fumbling with the card. To my surprise, the elevator scanned the key and selected the floor for me automatically. Before I could make sense of it, a voice called out from the hallway. "Hey! Hold the door." A leg in stiletto heels jammed into the closing elevator just in time. "You heard me say wait. Would it have killed you to press the button?" I looked up. And locked eyes with Sloane. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath when she saw me. "Something wrong, babe?" came a man's voice behind her, older, deeper. A much older man stepped in behind her, his arm immediately snaking around her waist. He looked like he could have been my uncle. Maybe even my dad. Sloane blinked, then plastered on a fake smile. "Nothing." She didn't look at me again. But I couldn't stop looking at her. She was dressed like someone twice her age, tight dress, heavy makeup, heels that made her taller than me. Nothing about her looked like a high school student. The elevator hummed in awkward silence until the chime rang out. Ding. Floor 6. They stepped out, and I saw the man's hand slip down to squeeze her ass. She didn't even flinch. Just kept walking, leaning into him, kissing him full on the mouth before they even reached the hallway corner. TSK, TSK. Running into her here was unexpected. But seeing that side of her? Somehow, not surprising at all. I hugged my backpack a little tighter and headed up to my room. There were things to study. And for now, staying invisible was the only thing keeping me safe. The next morning, I had breakfast downstairs in the hotel restaurant. On my way back to the room, I spotted someone at the end of the hallway. Sloane. She stood with her head down, fingers casually holding a vape pen, exhaling a thin stream of vapor like she'd done it 1,000 times. Clearly, she had. She glanced up when she saw me and tilted her chin. "What are you doing here?" I didn't miss a beat. "What are you doing here?" It was 9:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. She should have been in school, sitting in second period, not hiding out in a hotel hallway vaping and hooking up with older guys. I took a few days off. "Figured I'd have some fun," she said, taking another drag. Then she let out a sharp little laugh. Never pegged you as someone who could afford a place like this. You'd be surprised what you don't know. I kept my voice level. No bite. Just enough chill to hold the line. She narrowed her eyes. The hell did you just say to me? I didn't bother replying. Just turned toward the elevator. This wasn't school. She couldn't shove me into a locker here. And if she did touch me, I could report her, maybe even squeeze a settlement out of her family. But apparently, she was dumb enough to try. I heard her footsteps coming toward me. Before she could get close, a hotel employee stepped in. Ma'am, this is a non-smoking floor. I'm going to have to ask you to put that away, he said, gesturing politely to the vape pen. Sloane shot him a glare so cold it could have cracked glass, then leaned slightly toward me and hissed under her breath, "Keep your mouth shut. If I hear you told anyone you saw me here, you're dead." I walked into the elevator without even looking back. Just before the doors closed, I raised my hand and flipped her off. Middle finger. Just like her and her little gang used to do to everyone else. Now it was her turn. She shouted something as the doors slid shut, but I didn't hear it. And I didn't care. I didn't go back to school for a few days. Stayed in the hotel. Studied on my own. Kept quiet. Until Mom sent someone to pick me up. That's when I knew, things at home were safe again. When I returned to school, my classmates were buzzing with curiosity. Most of them just envied the fact that I got to skip class for a few days. Only Ava ran up to me with real concern in her eyes. "I heard you were out sick. What happened? Where does it hurt?" "My brain," I said with a straight face. "That's serious," she deadpanned. "If your name ever appears below mine on the report card, I might go into shock." She waved her test results in front of me with a smug grin. The results for the citywide mock exams had come out. Once again, it was Ava and me, first and second. Our scores weren't just high for our school, they were some of the best in the entire city. Enough to make the school look good for once. The principal called us into his office personally to congratulate us. "You two really outdid yourselves," he beamed. "Keep it up." Mr. Carter stood beside him, clutching his ever-present coffee mug, smiling like he'd won the lottery. "Principal, I've got an idea," he said. "Let's have them give a little speech at next week's school assembly. You know, share some study tips." I blinked. "Wait, we're going up there together?" "That's, maybe not the best idea," I mumbled, trying to keep my voice low. But Mr. Carter either didn't catch the tone or chose to ignore it. "Why wouldn't it be?" he said cheerfully. "You two are the pride of our class." And just like that, we were officially declared the school's new model students. "Gotta hand it to you," Ava said as we left the office. "You've really mastered the art of staying locked in at second place." I rolled my eyes. Was that a compliment or a roast? She smirked. "Little of both." Ever since that night in my neighborhood, something between us had shifted. We weren't just classmates anymore. She started walking home with me after school. On weekends, we'd meet up at the park nearby and study together, our own little secret spot. Ava always came with a bag of cat food. She'd kneel near the tall grass, give a soft whistle, and within seconds a swarm of stray cats would appear from the bushes, brushing against her legs, mewing like they'd been waiting for her all day. "You keep feeding them like this and they're gonna turn into beach balls," I teased, watching their plump bellies wobble. Meow. One especially round cat trotted over and started rubbing against my sneaker like it understood exactly what I'd said. "Hey, it's bullying me. Aren't you gonna say something?" "Nope," she said, laughing. "You dissed her weight. You deserve it." She bent down to scratch the cat's belly. The animal flopped over like it was in heaven. I always thought these days would last forever. Afternoons at the park. quiet laughter. Secret snacks for stray cats. But then came one of those clear, perfect afternoons. Sunshine. Breeze. Just the two of us, sitting on a bench with our books open. And everything changed. She said it so casually, I almost didn't catch it. I'm moving. Something in my chest dipped, like the ground had shifted an inch beneath me. Why? My parents want me back home. We're not originally from this state. I nudged one of the cats away from my foot, staring at the grass for a long moment before I asked, when? In about 2 weeks. You'll miss the next mock exam. Yeah, she said, smiling. Kind of a shame. What's the shame? I asked, finally looking up. Her smile was soft. Bright. And, somehow, a little sad. I've never seen you take first place. I looked down again, mumbling, that's because I can't beat you. No, she said firmly. You let me win. Her voice was calm but sure. I've seen you leave the last few questions blank on purpose. You could have gotten a perfect score. I didn't say anything. She let it go and changed the subject. What about you? She asked. Which college are you thinking about? Me? I'd never really thought about it. Most of my life had been one carefully charted path, mapped by my mother. I don't know, I admitted. She tilted her head. You don't have anything you want to do? I stretched out on the bench, staring up at the sky. A fat orange cat clambered onto my stomach and flopped there like a furry paperweight. I stroked its back absently and watched the clouds shift. I want to. We never finished that conversation. We made plans to meet one last time before she left. A quiet little farewell that Saturday. Nothing fancy, just the two of us at our favorite pizza place. But things didn't go the way we planned. Because I left first. My mom decided it was time to transfer me to another school. Said it was safer. Cleaner. Better. It all happened fast. I didn't say goodbye. Not to Ava. Not to anyone. I'd never had close friends, Mom made sure of that. But Ava, she was different. I heard later she spent days looking for me, asking around, trying to figure out where I'd gone. She wanted to know why I disappeared without a word. But I never got the chance to tell her. The day we were supposed to meet, I still went to the pizza place. From across the street. I sat in the back seat of a car, forehead against the rain-slicked glass, and watched through the window as she sat inside alone. She was rearranging the pizza and drinks on the table, like she was trying to make everything look just right. That's when I noticed the cake beside her. When my birthday comes, I'm getting cake. But this time, you don't get to steal my slice. Her voice echoed in my head like she was still sitting next to me. It was her birthday. And she'd still come. Rain began to fall harder outside. My breath fogged the glass, and Ava's outline grew blurrier by the second. I didn't open the door. Didn't call out. Just watched. Goodbye, Ava. I finally knew the truth. I was him, the boy they whispered about. The son of the chairman of Sterling Capital Group. Liam. Richard and Victoria's marriage had never been about love. It was a transaction, an alliance between two business empires. And once the papers were signed, Richard showed his true colors. Affairs. Scandals. Illegitimate children. Crown Group had power, sure, but it was nothing compared to Sterling. Staying tethered to that name meant survival. Growth. Relevance. So they struck a deal. No matter how many bastards Richard fathered outside their marriage, would be the sole heir. The only one with a rightful claim. Once I turned 18, I'd become the legally designated successor to Sterling Capital Group. Richard agreed, of course. He had no choice. He couldn't afford to sever ties with the Crowns, not for a bunch of nameless kids who'd never be allowed near the boardroom. I was just a baby when my mother left Sterling Estate. I don't remember it, I was still wailing in her arms, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Until he turns 18, she said, he's mine. And so, my 18th birthday wouldn't just be a birthday. It would be a handover. A corporate coronation. Everyone was watching that date. Everyone but me. When I finally met Richard, I was already 17. It was the first time I'd seen him in my life. His hair was combed perfectly, streaked with a few strands of gray. His jawline was sharp, chiseled by time. He looked like power in a tailored suit. His mouth was set in a thin line, but not with anger. With control. I sat beside him, stiff and awkward. We were father and son. But he felt more like a stranger. The banquet table between us was massive, bigger than the living room in our apartment. Dishes rotated on a glass platform large enough to seat 10. My mom sat across from us, poised and silent. Uncle. The word nearly slipped out before I felt her stare cut across the table like a blade. I pivoted, fast. Dad. He didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. How old are you now? He asked. His voice wasn't as stern as I expected. Softer, almost, polite. 17, I said, careful, composed. A scoff came from across the table. He turns 18 in a few days, my mother muttered. Richard nodded slowly, letting that sink in. Then he shifted topics, like he'd rehearsed it. What grade are you in? Senior year, I mumbled. My voice felt too small for the room. He nodded again. Grown up fast. He reached out, as if to ruffle my hair. Don't feel obligated to talk, my mother cut in, cool and clear. His hand paused mid-air, then dropped back to his lap. Just then, a man in a suit entered the room, whispered something into Richard's ear. I watched the transformation. His posture tightened. His eyes sharpened. The softness disappeared in an instant. This was the real Richard. The one the world saw. Only in my mother's presence did he soften. Not out of love. Out of calculation. Out of debt. Come stay at Sterling Estate tonight, he said, turning toward me, but the words weren't really meant for me. They were for her. My mother gave him a sharp look, practically rolling her eyes. What for? He's not going. I'd never been to Sterling Estate. Word was, it was huge. Big enough to fit my entire neighborhood inside it. But I wasn't allowed to go. Not yet. Not until they decided it was time. The night before my 18th birthday, they brought me back to Sterling Estate. That's when I finally understood why my mom never let me come here. This place was full of other women. Is she one of Richard's girlfriends? I asked, unable to keep the words in. Mr. Whitaker, the estate's longtime butler, followed my gaze. The woman I was pointing at was young, maybe in her early 30s. Her makeup was flawless, designer heels clicking against the marble floor. She held the hand of a toddler who was barely old enough to speak. Walking beside her was an even younger woman. Maybe 20. Maybe less. Mr. Whitaker frowned, then lifted his hand and began counting silently on his fingers. Yes, he said at last. That's legal? They're not married. They just live here, he said flatly, like it was nothing out of the ordinary. Suddenly, everything made sense. No wonder my mom left. No wonder she never wanted me to see this place. This wasn't a home, it was a harem. There were enough women here to form a soccer team. And probably enough kids to fill out the bench. There's only one legal wife, Mr. Whitaker added, voice crisp. Your mother. Right. So technically, my father wasn't cheating. He was just building families. Everywhere. A booming voice cut through the air behind me. Mr. Whitaker. This must be my little brother. I turned around to find a guy about my age, maybe a few years older, walking toward us. Athletic build, perfectly styled hair, and a casual designer outfit littered with logos. The kind of guy who looked like he woke up with sponsorship deals in his inbox. He swung a Ferrari keychain around his finger like it was nothing more than a toy. That was Logan. My half-brother. Same father, different mother. I didn't know that yet, not officially. But I could feel it in the way he looked at me. Before I could respond, Mr. Whitaker stepped between us and gave a polite, practiced smile. No, no. He's not your brother. This is my nephew. He's visiting from Kingsport for the holiday break. Family friend asked me to look after him. Logan's smile dropped. His gaze swept over me, cold and calculating. And why wouldn't it? I was wearing a wrinkled tracksuit and carrying a busted backpack with a half-broken zipper. I looked like a lost public school kid who had wandered into the wrong mansion. He didn't ask anything else. Just nodded stiffly and walked off, already bored. Your mother gave strict instructions, Mr. Whitaker said once we were alone again. No one is to know who you really are. So even now, even here, I had to stay hidden. I wasn't Liam. Not yet. On the day of my 18th birthday, the entire Kingsport media scene descended on Sterling Estate. Every camera, every reporter, every whispering socialite, they were all there for one reason. To finally catch a glimpse of the mysterious heir to the Sterling Capital Group. The elusive son of Richard Sterling. Me. Mr. Whitaker handed me the suit himself. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection of a boy who looked like he'd been shoved into a man's costume. The jacket was too perfect. Tailored down to the millimeter. The fabric draped like liquid steel. You didn't need to know anything about fashion to recognize it screamed money. It was the first time I'd ever worn anything like this. And from today on, it was my uniform. Because from this moment forward, I wasn't Ethan anymore. I was Liam. Sterling Capital Group's official, contractually declared, one and only heir. But the truth was, I was still Ethan underneath. That's why, when I finally stepped out into the light of 100 cameras and 1,000 staring eyes, I was wearing a mask. Not metaphorically. Literally. Because even though my parents had signed an agreement crowning me as the heir, my father's illegitimate children weren't giving up the throne without a fight. Some of them believed that if I disappeared, if Liam could be removed from the picture, they'd have a shot. My mother had warned me. We haven't found all of them yet, she'd said. The knives aren't gone. They're just quiet. Until every threat was neutralized, I couldn't reveal my face. And so, for the years that followed, I lived a double life. To the world, Liam Sterling had been disfigured in an accident. His face, once full of promise, was now hidden behind sleek, custom-made masks. They whispered about tragedy. Privacy. Power cloaked in mystery. But underneath that mask, I was still Ethan. After high school, I got into a decent university in Kingsport. Nothing fancy. Prestigious enough to be respectable, but low-key enough to keep a low profile. On campus, I was no one special. Just Ethan. A quiet kid who didn't join clubs, didn't party, didn't date. I won the occasional scholarship. Skipped the social stuff. A typical background character in someone else's college story. But off campus? Behind boardroom doors? I sat beside my father at quarterly reviews. Shadowed senior advisors. Took notes at merger meetings. Studied stock charts and legal contracts. Liam Sterling, future CEO in training. That balance, of invisibility and legacy, was what kept me safe. It was also what kept me sane. On graduation day, the dorm room was buzzing with the chaos of endings. My roommates packed their bags, stuffing years of memories into duct-taped boxes. Everyone had a plan. Or at least a direction. Some were prepping for grad school. Others chasing job offers in far-off cities. One guy was headed to Thailand to find himself. "What about you?" one of them asked me, nodding toward the bed I hadn't packed yet. "I've got an interview Sunday," I said. "For real? Just one?" "Yeah. What if it doesn't go well? You got a backup?" I zipped up my duffel bag and shrugged. "If it doesn't work out?" I gave a small smile. "I guess I'll just go home and inherit the family fortune." They laughed, of course. Thought I was being sarcastic. But I wasn't. I had an interview at Sterling Capital Group. Even though I'd technically grown up in its shadow, I still had to go through the motions, just like everyone else. The halls outside the conference rooms were packed. A swarm of nervous candidates in crisp suits, clutching leather folders and rehearsed answers under their breath. I was halfway through the line when something caught my eye. A girl bent down near the far end of the corridor, squinting at the floor, her hands sweeping side to side like she was searching for something. I stared for a second. Then another. And slowly, like film developing in reverse, her image began to overlap with the one I'd kept in the back of my mind all these years. Ava. She looked up, blinking around, eyes unfocused. She still couldn't see clearly without her glasses. That much hadn't changed. Ava? She tilted her head. What? It was her. No doubt about it. Her contact lens must have fallen out, again. And without glasses, she couldn't hear well either. "You only brought one pair?" I asked. We searched for a bit, but the lens had vanished. "Yeah, I've got my frames too," she said finally, pulling a scratched-up case from her bag. "But my roommate said I look kinda dorky with them on." She snapped the case open, and inside was that pair. The one I'd bought her years ago. The frames were old now, the metal worn, but she slid them on like muscle memory. And just like that, in a single breath, she looked like her again. Older, yes. Prettier, sharper, but still Ava. The one who used to kneel beside me in a park, feeding stray cats like it was a job. "I don't think you look dorky at all," I said softly. "They suit you." She gave me a look, curious but unreadable. We talked for a while after that. It turned out she had stayed. After high school, she'd gone to college while juggling part-time jobs and taking care of her father. Not long before graduation, he passed away. "I don't really have a home anymore," she said with a quiet shrug. "Anywhere I land is as good as anywhere else." She didn't say it like a tragedy. But I knew. I could tell how much she'd shouldered. Alone. Still, she'd made it. She'd been accepted into a research grad program in New York. Fall semester, first-year masters. Right now, she was just trying to line up an internship. "Let me see your resume." She handed me 2 neatly typed pages. I scanned them. Internships at a few major firms. Mentions of real projects. A near-perfect GPA. Academic awards almost every semester. "You've done well," I said, handing it back. "Oh," she smirked. "You sound like an actual recruiter. You gonna hire me or something?" I shrugged. "I mean, I could use a bodyguard." She narrowed her eyes, chin lifting with a familiar flick of mock pride. "Please. You couldn't afford me." And just like that, it was there again. That same rhythm. That old warmth. The ease of us. Ava got the job. She passed her interview and was placed as an intern in one of the entry-level departments at Sterling Capital Group. A few days later, I got my own assignment. Same department. She texted me that morning, excitement practically glowing through the screen. We're co-workers now. When are you getting to the office? The truth was, I was already there. I'd been at HQ since 7 a.m., on the executive floor, 2 stories above her. Sir, these are the final candidates who passed the interviews. My executive assistant, Olivia, set a neatly clipped stack of resumes on my desk. I was selecting a new junior assistant. Halfway through flipping the pages, my fingers stopped. There it was. A heavily filtered headshot, and a name that hit like a sour memory. Haley Brooks. I glanced down the list of credentials. Nothing impressive. Below average, if we were being honest. But I smiled. She's the one. Olivia blinked. Haley Brooks? I nodded. Out of all the resumes, hers was the weakest. Clearly pushed through by someone with connections. Exactly what I needed. When Haley got the acceptance email, she was grinding against strangers in a downtown nightclub, strobe lights dancing across her drink. Holy shit. She froze, eyes wide. What? Sloane grabbed her phone before she could answer. The second she read the subject line, her jaw locked. You've been offered a position at Sterling Capital Group. The music kept pounding, but everything else went quiet. Oh my God. You're gonna be Mr. Sterling's assistant? What? A cluster of partygoers crowded around, screaming, clinking glasses, congratulating her like she'd just been handed a throne. Someone bumped into Sloane from behind. Her smile vanished. Please, she snapped. It's just an assistant position. What's the big deal? She took a long sip of her cocktail, eyes narrowing. Mr. Sterling already has Olivia. You'll probably just fetch coffee or sort spreadsheets. Haley's face stiffened. The smile on her lips held, but only just. She couldn't lash out. Not here. Not at her. So she laughed awkwardly. Totally. I mean, I'm just a junior. No comparison. The group nodded, awkwardly pretending not to hear the venom in Sloane's tone. Then someone turned the tables. So, Sloane, when's the wedding? One girl teased, laughing. Should we start shopping for your registry? Sloane's expression morphed, just like that. Eyebrows arched. Smile polished to perfection. Soon, probably. Liam keeps pushing for it, she said, voice dripping with sugar. But I told him, I'm just not ready to settle down yet. I mean, we're both super ambitious people, she added, tossing her hair. Careers first, always. Haley, standing to the side, barely concealed the sneer rising in her throat. Liar. Haley's first official day. Olivia brought her to my office. She walked in quietly, heels tapping against the polished floors, her posture stiff. Hands folded in front of her, head slightly lowered. A far cry from the girl who used to strut through the halls of Kingsport Central like she owned the place. Back then, she was loud, smug, cruel, especially to Ava. Now, she was nervous. And I was wearing a mask. The rumors had taken on a life of their own. People said the heir of Sterling Capital had been in a horrific accident, his face mangled beyond recognition. Some said it was from a car crash. Others said it was punishment from a vengeful rival. All anyone agreed on was that no one had seen Liam Sterling's real face in years. I let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. Do you understand everything Olivia assigned to you? Haley nodded, eyes still lowered. Yes. Got it. I watched her closely. Her voice was soft. Careful. She was afraid. Good. Get all those files organized, I said. I want them on my desk by tomorrow morning. That made her look up, startled. Tomorrow? Her voice cracked slightly, then she scrambled to rephrase it. I mean, Olivia just dumped a whole gig of files on me. If it's due by tomorrow, I'll probably have to pull an all-nighter tonight. Is that a problem? I asked flatly. She froze. No. No problem. If you can't handle it, that's fine, I said, folding my hands on the desk. Just tell Olivia. We'll find someone else. I can do it, she blurted out, almost too loud. I leaned back and said nothing. She knew what that silence meant. She wasn't going to quit. Not on day one. Not from this job. She'd waited too long, and clawed too hard, to get in the door. The next afternoon, 4 p.m. sharp, she returned to my office. Dark circles under her eyes. Clothes slightly wrinkled. Her voice hoarse. I just finished. I stayed up all night. 21 hours straight, she added, like it might earn her points. I didn't even look up. I'm not interested in the process, I said, turning a page. Only the outcome. She stood there, frozen, holding the file like it was the last thing tethering her to this job. It's not good, I said. Mediocre at best. Her face crumpled. Tears gathered at the edges of her eyes, threatening to fall, but she held them back. Barely. But this was just the beginning. She needed to learn what it felt like to sit in a seat she never earned. To bear the weight of borrowed power. I stood up, grabbing my coat. Where are you going? She asked before she could stop herself. I paused. Breakfast. My day always started early. By 7 a.m., I'd already been at my desk for 2 hours, sorting deals, reviewing mergers, approving briefings. Then, at 9 sharp, I stepped into my private elevator. 2 floors down. By the time the doors opened, I wasn't Liam anymore. I was Ethan again. You seriously need to get it together, Ava scolded, handing me a paper bag that smelled like fresh eggs and hash browns. Second time you're late this month. One more time and you lose your attendance bonus. Traffic was a mess, I mumbled, taking the breakfast. Then leave earlier, she snapped. I'm up at 6, on the bus by 7, and I get here just fine. She lived far out in the suburbs. 2 hours each way. 4 hours a day lost to public transportation. Still, every morning, without fail, she stopped by the same little cafe near the office and picked up breakfast, for both of us. Why not move closer? I asked. She rolled her eyes. You think I haven't thought about that? Rent near the office is $700 more a month than what I'm paying now. She started counting on her fingers. That's nearly $8,500 a year. You know what that covers? A few months' rent, student loan payments, or half a semester of grad school. Fair point, I nodded. That's a lot. Ava had always been careful with money. Frugal, even now. She had no family left to support. No one depending on her. Still, she lived like every dollar had a job to do. Isn't your birthday coming up next month? I asked casually. She glanced at me. How'd you know? Of course I knew. That rainy day we parted ways, it was her birthday. But I just shrugged. Saw it on your resume. I have a good memory. She narrowed her eyes. You remembered that from my resume? Just like that? I didn't answer. She was already smiling. I'll take you out for dinner, I said. No need, she cut in quickly. I'll take you out. She said it the exact same way she used to, like back then, when she'd treat me to cafeteria noodles if I aced a test or fixed her laptop. All right, I said. What are we eating then? Not KFC, that's for sure. She stood up and headed back to her desk. Ava was good at her job. Sharp. Efficient. Reliable. Her first project hit every milestone and outperformed expectations. She earned a bonus on the spot. "Let's go," she grinned one evening, practically dragging me toward the elevator. "Dinner's on me." I raised an eyebrow. "You win the lottery or something?" "Don't disrespect me like that," she scoffed. "You're looking at a bonus-worthy professional now." She took me to a restaurant in one of Kingsport's most exclusive districts. This part of town was all marble storefronts, rooftop terraces, luxury boutiques. I'd been in places like this before, of course. Board dinners, shareholder meetings, my father's social events. But sitting across from Ava here? That was different. And I couldn't help smiling the whole time. She handed me the menu with a dramatic flourish. "Order whatever you want," she said proudly. I glanced at the prices. They were steep, very steep. Then a thought hit me. Are you sure you brought enough cash?" I asked, half joking, half serious. "Nope," she smirked. "You're staying behind to wash dishes." Ava was in high spirits. She ordered a ton of food, and when the wine list came, she got even more excited. "I've never really tried any of this stuff before," she said. "Might as well now." I tried to stop her, but there was no use. Once Ava set her mind on something, that was it. She raised her glass and started talking about that day. "You know," she said, already tipsy, "the day you left. I came to class like always. Saw your seat was empty. Figured you just called in sick again." She paused, swirling the drink in her hand. "But then the teacher said you weren't coming back. Told the others to pack up your stuff." Her voice cracked. "Why'd you just leave like that?" She poured herself more wine, spilling it all over the table. "I mean, I was the one who said I was leaving," she mumbled, "but somehow, you left first." She stared into her glass. "And we were supposed to meet up that day, remember? You promised to come see me off. You never showed." She blinked slowly, the alcohol catching up to her now. "You know what day that was, right?" "It was my birthday." I reached out to take the bottle from her before she could pour more, but she was already slumped over the table, her head resting on her folded arms. "I kept thinking you'd show up," she whispered. "I waited so long. But you never came." "I did come," I said softly. She ended up throwing up in the restroom. I waited outside, helpless. The bathroom door opened. The last person I wanted to see walked out. Sloane. She dried her hands with a flick and shot me a look of mild disgust. "If you can't hold your liquor, maybe stick to juice," she muttered, waving a hand in front of her nose. Then she spotted me. Her eyes lit up with recognition, and not the pleasant kind. Well, if it isn't the old class clown," she said with a grin. "Didn't expect to see you in a place like this." She looked me up and down, eyes narrowing. "Actually, come to think of it, didn't I see you working at some hotel once? Maybe you're not as broke as I thought." I didn't respond. Didn't want to talk. Didn't want to see her. Didn't want any of this. I turned my body slightly, silently asking her to leave. But she didn't leave. Instead, she staggered a few steps toward me, her heels clicking on the tile, her eyes bleary with alcohol, or something else. "It's been, what, a few years," she slurred. "You actually look different now. Hot, even." She reached out with damp fingers, aiming for my face. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her expression, manic. This wasn't just alcohol. "Keep your hands to yourself," I said flatly, brushing her hand away. Still the same attitude, she snorted. "You haven't changed one bit." But strangely, she didn't lash out. She didn't scream. Didn't stomp her feet like she used to in high school. Instead, she smirked and sauntered outside. I watched through the glass doors as she climbed into a bright red Ferrari. In Kingsport, there weren't many cars like that. It caught my eye for more reasons than one. I leaned forward, squinting at the license plate. As I suspected, it was his. Logan's car. A moment later, Sloane and Logan were all over each other in the front seat, kissing shamelessly, completely ignoring the foot traffic around them. "Ready?" Ava's voice called softly behind me. She had just stepped out of the restroom, still looking pale. I rushed to her side. "You okay?" I asked. She wrinkled her nose and waved me off. "Never drinking that crap again," she muttered. Seeing Sloane again brought back more than I cared to admit. Her name had never really disappeared from my life. Rumor had it she'd gotten into a well-known film school, one with a strong alumni network. Thanks to her family's connections, she landed a few indie projects. None of them made her a household name, but she gained just enough traction to stay relevant in the scene. Her father used to do business with mine, Richard Sterling, and for years, he'd tried to push the idea of a match between Sloane and me. They'd never met me in person, but that didn't matter. Getting his daughter into the Sterling family would have been his ultimate play. His way of extracting every last drop of value from her life. My father? He never commented on it. Every rumor about an engagement between me and Sloane? That was pure fiction, manufactured by her side. But this time, I heard Richard bring up Sloane. After I officially returned to the Sterling family at 18, my mother insisted that Richard and I sit down for dinner twice a month, just the two of us. Her hope was that we'd bond. "Liam, you're what, 21 now?" he asked one evening, swirling the wine in his glass. I looked up. 22. He could never remember my age. 22. Right. I gave a small nod. Technically true. "Has your mother mentioned any potential fiancés?" he probed carefully. "No. She says there's no rush." "I see," he said, a little too relieved. I let the silence stretch. After a moment, he spoke again. "Sloane, have you heard of her? She's sort of a small-time actress." That was the first time my father ever mentioned Sloane to me. Strange. Now he wanted to push that pairing, too. When my mother found out, she lost it. "Don't you dare project your filthy values onto Liam," she snapped. "He's not some bargaining chip for your business deals. You ruined my life. You don't get to ruin his too. Let me make this perfectly clear, who my son marries, goes through me first." Richard nodded through the tirade, apologizing without protest. He never brought up Sloane in front of me again. But Sloane? She showed up on our doorstep herself. With gifts. Polished. Poised. Sugar-sweet to every single person she passed. Victoria took one look at her and walked away without a word. Richard asked us to sit and get to know each other. So we ended up in the grand living room, seated across from each other. From behind my mask, I watched her maintain that perfect, practiced smile. She made sure to sit just far enough to appear proper. "I've never actually dated anyone," she said coyly, adjusting her posture like some starlet playing demure. "Have you?" Fishing for small talk. I didn't take the bait. "Want some fruit?" she offered, picking up a polished red apple and holding it out. I knew exactly what she was doing. "My face was severely burned," I said flatly. "If I took off this mask, I might scare you." "Oh, don't be silly," she said, her voice laced with false warmth. "We're going to be family one day. We'll be spending every day together. I'll get used to it." I smiled beneath the mask. She was really playing the long game, already acting like the next Mrs. Sterling. "Well, I just remembered I've got a meeting," I said, standing up. "Excuse me." I left her sitting there alone in the lavish silence. After I left, Sloane sat for a while. Then, once she was sure no one was watching, she got up and casually made her way toward the back of the estate. She moved like she knew exactly where she was going. And she did. In a secluded corner of the garden, just out of sight, Logan was waiting. "I thought you came here for Liam," he said, clearly annoyed. "Why the hell are you sneaking around with me?" "He's in a meeting," she replied breezily. "Won't be back for a while." Soft rustling followed. "What the hell's wrong with you?" he hissed. "Are you crazy, meeting me here?" "What? This is my house." "Your house?" he sneered. "Your own father doesn't even call you his daughter in public. Liam's the only one he acknowledges." There was a small yelp. Sloane must have hit a nerve, and Logan clearly didn't take it well. "Don't worry," she said quickly. "This house will be mine sooner or later. And once it is, Liam won't even exist anymore." "You better move fast," Logan muttered. "That freak, with God knows what kind of face under that mask, I swear, if I have to look at him every day, I'm gonna be sick." "Relax," Sloane said coldly. "He's not making it to 23. They thought they were being careful. They avoided all the visible security cameras. But what they didn't know was, I had surveillance they didn't know about. That very courtyard? It was wired with high-resolution audio and visuals. Every word, every gesture, they were all mine now. By the way," Logan added, "you should have your little friend keep a closer eye on him. Isn't she working as his assistant or something?" "Haley?" Sloane scoffed. "She's an idiot. I'd trust myself before I trust her." Meanwhile, Ava was thriving. She'd been officially hired, well ahead of schedule. Of course, it had nothing to do with me. Despite being the CEO, I never once stepped in to help her. Everything she earned on her own. She got her full-time offer the same day as her birthday. She insisted on taking me out to dinner to celebrate. But instead of heading to some fancy restaurant, we went to her place. Her place wasn't big, a 3-bedroom apartment she shared with others. She only occupied one of the smaller rooms. "None of my roommates are home tonight," she said, kicking off her shoes. "I let them know in advance." For the next few hours, she stayed busy in the kitchen, moving like a whirlwind as she prepared dish after dish. Every time I tried to help, she kicked me right back out. So I sat on her worn-out couch, playing with her fat orange cat. "Hey, I feel kind of guilty here," I called out. "It's your birthday, and you're the one slaving away." "Yeah right," she shouted back. "Like you even know how to feel guilty." Eventually, she kicked me off the couch too, this time to carry the dishes to the table. She was a great cook. We devoured everything. Not a single crumb left. After dinner, I turned off the lights and lit the candles on her cake. "Make a wish," I said. The warm candlelight flickered against her face as she clasped her hands together and closed her eyes. She stayed like that for a long moment, silent, thoughtful. Then she opened her eyes and blew out the candles. The room fell into complete darkness. I didn't move to turn the lights back on. "What did you wish for?" I asked softly. She didn't answer. In the darkness, I could barely make out her outline. Then I felt it, something soft pressed against my lips. She kissed me. Her cat bolted from the room. And just like that, Ava and we were together. To be honest, I'd planned to confess to her that night. I just didn't expect she'd beat me to it. Later, I handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked, pulling out a single sheet of paper. "A piece of paper? That's the gift?" We were curled up on the couch, still in the dark. Her fingers were cold in mine. She held it up, squinting at it under the dim light from the window. "My autograph," I said casually. "Oh wow," she teased. "So valuable." Absolutely priceless. Well then, I better store it somewhere safe. She got up, padded into her room, and tucked the paper into her cabinet. Then she came back and curled up beside me again. But if she'd looked just a little closer, she would have seen it wasn't just any paper. It was a property deed. I'd bought her an apartment, right near Sterling Capital Group. Ava had officially passed her probation. But Haley, who had graduated from the same class as her, was still struggling. Badly. This was the 7th time this month she came into my office crying. Do you think crying is going to solve anything? I asked, arms crossed. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, it's all my fault, she stammered between sobs, repeating her apologies like a broken record. Tears streaked her cheeks, mixing with mascara. Her dark circles looked deeper every time I saw her. She looked older than when she first joined the company, like life had already worn her down. This is the last time, Haley. I leaned forward, voice calm but firm. This task is tied to one of the most important projects I'm handling right now. If you mess it up again, you're done. Pack your things. Haley sniffled hard and stumbled out of my office. I headed downstairs, only to find Ava's desk empty. After a quick look around, I spotted her in the break room. Haley was there too, crying her eyes out while Ava patted her shoulder. Come on, don't cry. If your work feels tough, it means you're growing, Ava was saying gently. They hadn't exactly been close in school, but Ava was soft-hearted. Haley didn't have many friends in the office, and every time she screwed up, she somehow found her way to Ava. But it's just so hard, Haley hiccuped. What's so hard about it? Ava asked. It just is. You wouldn't get it, you haven't seen it. Maybe you could take a look. Ava hesitated. Fine. I'll take a look. Haley had successfully roped her in again. Let's be honest, take a look meant do it for me. I pulled Ava aside later. You should just let her go. Ava sighed. You have no idea how messy her work is. It's a nightmare. Then why help her? I asked, frustration creeping in. She gave a small shrug. I guess it's still for the good of the company. I heard that project she's on is part of some major campaign. If she screws it up, it'll reflect badly on everyone. I'd rather step in than deal with the fallout. Her reasoning made sense. Still, guilt prickled at me. She had no idea who I really was. By the way, she added, Haley said there's a class reunion this weekend. She wants us both to go. Are you going? I asked, skeptical. I didn't really want to. Class reunions were mostly just a stage for people to flex, nothing to do with actual friendships. The people who mattered in your life didn't need that kind of event to stay in touch. I think we should go, Ava said softly. I heard Mr. Carter's not doing well. He's been sick, and they say, he doesn't have many years left. I sighed. In the end, I went, with Ava by my side. We had just stepped through the door when I heard Haley's voice ring out behind a half-closed partition. All the work gets dumped on me while he's nowhere to be found half the time. He snaps for no reason. I swear, he's doing it just to torture me. And that mask he wears? Gives me the creeps. God knows how hideous he must be underneath it. Classmates huddled around her, offering sympathetic nods and hushed support. That's when Sloane entered. What's the party over here? She asked lightly. Haley went pale and clamped her mouth shut. The crowd scattered like startled birds. Everyone knew exactly who she'd just been talking about. The monster in question? Sloane's so-called fiancé. Sloane, when's the big day? Someone asked, shifting the tension. Soon, she replied, beaming like a woman on the cover of a bridal magazine. He's been inviting me over a lot lately. Honestly, I told him it's inappropriate to stay at his place too often, we're not married yet after all. She giggled, flipping her hair just enough to show off the oversized diamond glittering on her finger. He gave me this recently. Said there's a bigger one coming when he proposes properly. The wedding's tentatively set for next year, she added, still smiling. He'll be 23 by then. I'll be 25. Perfect timing. The crowd clapped and cooed their congratulations. I watched from the side, arms crossed, unmoved. The whole thing was a performance, and frankly, not a great one. Her acting could use work. Then Sloane's eyes swept the room and landed squarely on me, and Ava. I heard Ava and Ethan are together now, she said, feigning casual curiosity. Without missing a beat, I reached for Ava's hand, warm and familiar. We are, I said. You too? Really? Haley muttered, glancing at us. She didn't say more. Sloane, however, turned her attention back to Haley. You three work at the same company, don't you? Since you're old classmates, Haley, you should really take care of them, offer some guidance, help them out, she said sweetly, with just the right amount of poison under the sugar. Oh, of course, Haley forced a laugh. Not that Sloane knew, every time Haley helped, it was Ava doing her work behind the scenes. Next to me, Ava's hand curled into a fist. I gently rubbed my thumb along her knuckles, grounding her. So, Sloane turned back to us, any wedding plans yet? I want to know so I can prepare a gift. I met her gaze. Maybe when I turn 23. She raised a brow. So soon? Do you even have a house? A car? Nope. Then what are you getting married for? She scoffed. You've got nothing. She rolled her eyes and finally turned away. The doors to the banquet hall creaked open. Mr. Carter walked in. Well, it's been a long time, hasn't it, everyone? What little remained of his hair clung to his scalp, and his face had collapsed into the weariness of old age. It had only been 4 or 5 years, but he looked decades older, stooped, fragile, a ghost of the sharp-eyed teacher I remembered. Mr. Carter, Ava called out, rising to her feet. She pulled out the chair beside her with a warm smile. Sit here. Sloane quickly cut in, gesturing to the empty seat next to her instead. Mr. Carter, over here. He looked at Ava for a moment, then turned and walked toward Sloane. In the weeks that followed, Haley ramped up her usual tricks. She started offloading more and more of her work onto Ava, tasks she clearly couldn't handle on her own. If things went well, she'd take the credit. If anything went wrong, Ava would be the fall girl. And Ava knew it. She wasn't naive. Still, she kept at it. Late nights, extra hours, quietly picking up the slack behind the scenes. I told her more than once to stop covering for Haley. But she shook her head, firm as ever. I promised her. And even if I hadn't, I can't just stand by and watch the company fall apart. I couldn't argue with that, not when she said it like that. Then came the department transfer. I had arranged it myself, a reassignment to Logan's division. Logan didn't actually hold any real power in the company. Richard had given him a ceremonial title, something soft and cushy, just to keep him on payroll. But Logan wasn't satisfied with that. He wanted more. He spent his days scheming, always chasing shortcuts, dreaming of ways to climb the ladder instead of learning how to lead. So I gave him a ladder. I knew he was gambling in the stock market, badly. Most of his money was trapped in positions he didn't understand. Can't really blame him. That brain of his wasn't built for numbers. I bided my time, got close, and offered some advice. It worked. Slowly, his investment started turning around. From near disaster to break even. Then, a small profit. Logan was thrilled. He thought he'd discovered a hidden gem in me. He didn't recognize me at all, didn't remember the boy Mr. Whittaker once brought into the company under the excuse of being some distant cousin. Someone not even worth a proper glance. Now, Logan was coming to me constantly, seeking advice, singing my praises. Eventually, he gave me a promotion. Said he wanted to put me in charge of more. Said I had potential. And I, of course, told him I was honored, and that I was more than willing to help him however I could. And just like that, Logan grew more and more careless around me. Walls down. Filter gone. He'd say whatever was on his mind, right in front of me. God knows what Liam's scheming this time. He was ranting into the phone in his office, pacing like a cornered animal. I knocked lightly on the door. "Mr. Logan, you asked to see me?" He waved me in mid-call, still barking into the receiver. We had an agreement. That project was ours. And now they're slicing it off and handing it out like leftovers. I quietly took my seat on the sofa in the corner, watching, listening. When he finally hung up, I leaned in just enough to help him think. "Was that about the new project we just on board, sir?" He shot me a glance and muttered, "Yeah. Forget it, it's out of our hands now." I sighed, mirroring his frustration. Such a shame. We already did half the work, and now some other department just walks off with the credit. Feels like we've been robbed. Logan straightened up. Exactly. All that effort wasted. And we don't even get a taste of the payoff. Right? Liam's running this place into the ground. I nodded earnestly, feeding the fire. If you ask me, you're the one who should be running this company. A few more lines like that, and Logan was practically glowing. He didn't even notice that I was letting him insult me to my face, he was too busy soaking in the praise. "You know what?" he said, puffing out his chest. "If I were in charge, this place would have been twice as profitable by now. No doubt about it." I clenched my fist, letting just enough anger bleed through. That was the day I officially became Logan's right hand. He thought we were aligned, tied together by mutual ambition. I was obedient. Sharp. Useful. And he liked that. Soon, he started sending me on errands. Not just office work, he wanted intel. Find out what Liam's working on. He's planning something big, I know it. But Ava noticed the shift in me. "You've been acting different," she said one night. "Is it because of your new department?" I rubbed at my temple, faking the stress. My new boss is a nightmare. Not just clueless, dangerously clueless. I have to overcompensate for everything. Ava frowned. "Logan's never been capable, but now that you're under him, just do your job and don't get dragged into his mess." She reached out and touched my arm. Her eyes were full of worry. "Seriously, keep your distance. If anything blows up, you'll go down with him." I pulled her gently into my arms, smoothing the crease between her brows with my thumb. "Don't worry," I whispered. "I know what I'm doing." When my mother found out that Ava and I were dating, her reaction wasn't what I expected. She didn't yell, not at first. She just looked at me, eyes sharp as knives, and said, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Ava, I began, but she cut me off. I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was afraid." "Afraid I'd break you two apart?" She stared at me for a long time, the silence between us waited and taut. Then she let out a long, heavy sigh. "So that's the kind of mother you think I am?" Turns out, she wasn't mad because I made the decision on my own. All this time, I'd assumed she'd spent my entire life grooming me for a strategic marriage, someone she'd choose, someone who'd serve the family's legacy. But that wasn't it. She was just hurt I hadn't confided in her. "I'm not against you being with Ava," she said quietly. "I raised you. I know your judgment. If this is who you chose, I trust there's a reason. But you need to be sure." I mean really sure. You're still young, there's a long road ahead. And on that road, you'll meet new people. Lots of them. She paused. If one day, you come across someone better, will you still stay with Ava? I understood where she was coming from. After all, Richard was infamous for falling for every new shiny thing that passed his way. She was afraid I'd inherited that gene. There's no such thing as better, I told her. She's already the best. Meanwhile, Logan had taken the bait. He believed everything I told him. He'd caught wind of Liam gearing up for a massive bid, a project so lucrative it could shift the entire power dynamic of the company. The profits were, quite literally, astronomical. And Logan? He was itching to get in, but his hands weren't even close to the steering wheel. We should go after it ourselves, I said. Logan squinted. Ourselves? We form a shell company. Use Sterling Capital's resources to bid alongside Liam. If we win, we walk away with the funds and cut ties. Who needs Sterling Capital after that? We'd become the next Sterling Capital. I handed him the perfect setup. The ladder to climb. The weapon to steal the crown. But he hesitated. Without the cushion of the company's backing, Logan didn't have the guts. Deep down, he knew the truth, he wasn't built for this. He didn't believe in himself. Not really. I floated another idea. What if, we tip off one of the bidding companies? Feed them just enough intel. If they win the contract, they give us a cut. Logan perked up at that. Liam's got a tight grip on the project, though. Where the hell are we supposed to get inside information? I've got a classmate, I said, casually. Her name's Haley. Word is, she's working as an assistant in the executive office. Logan raised an eyebrow. Of course he knew who Haley was. And why the hell would she help us? I heard she's been having a rough time under Liam. But if you, someone of your standing, happen to extend an olive branch right about now. I didn't need to finish the sentence. The smirk curling up at the edge of Logan's mouth told me everything, he'd already taken the bait. Sure enough, the assignment Ava had been covering for Haley. It blew up. I summoned Haley to my office. You know why I called you in? My voice was low and sharp, threaded with enough quiet fury to make her shrink in her seat. I'm not sure, she whispered, eyes glued to the floor. Could you tell me? You always think I'm targeting you, don't you? When Olivia first joined, I dumped a full gigabyte of files on her desk and told her to sort it. First day. She stayed up all night. The next morning, everything was done, clean, accurate, perfect. That was the slowest she's ever been. After that, the same task takes her 4 hours tops. Sometimes 2. And you? You've been in this role 6 months. You've done the same damn task dozens of times. No improvement. None. If you're this useless, why the hell am I paying you? Her tears started again, just like clockwork. I flipped open the latest report. The one Ava had stayed up 3 nights fixing. Let's talk about this assignment. Haley visibly flinched. She assumed the blowback had finally landed from the task she'd passed off. I stared her down. You did this yourself? She cracked. Completely. I wasn't familiar with it at the time, and things were so hectic, I just asked Ava to look over it. She insisted I'd done it wrong, said she needed to fix it, and that's how it ended up like this. She passed the blame like a seasoned pro. So you're saying, I said slowly, that Ava did this? Haley nodded. Then call her in, I said, leaning back. Tell her to come to my office. Ava and Haley stood before me. Haley said this assignment was your work, I said. Ava glanced at Haley, head down, eyes darting, visibly nervous, and instantly understood. She was being thrown under the bus. Yes, I handled it, Ava replied calmly. Was there a problem with it? No, I said. It was excellent. What? Haley's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Go collect your bonus from HR. Thank you. Ava shot Haley a quick look, turned on her heel, and walked away, leaving Haley standing there, mascara smudged and mouth agape. I glanced back at Haley. Anything else? No, she mumbled. Then why are you still standing here? Haley burst into tears, again, and fled the office. Only this time, no Ava was waiting in the break room to comfort her. Instead, Logan appeared. While I was still upstairs reviewing documents, Ava called. Where are you? At my desk, I replied automatically. I'm at your desk, and I don't see you. Shit. I jumped up and bolted downstairs. Ever since I transferred to Logan's department, my new office was in the adjacent building. Still on the same campus, but a solid 7 or 8 minute walk away. Ava never usually dropped by, so I'd been spending more time away from the main floor. By the time I reached her, breathless and sweating, she was already looking at me suspiciously. Where were you? I went to pick up a delivery, I panted, trying to catch my breath. But Ava wasn't letting up. Her eyes narrowed. What delivery? Show me. It was for Logan, I replied quickly. I already dropped it off in his office. I just came from Logan's office. Funny, I didn't see you there. Of course, it was Ava. She wasn't so easily fooled. Maybe we just missed each other, I offered weakly, trying to brush it off. What's gotten into you today? But the guilt was already creeping up my throat. I just haven't seen you all day. Thought I'd stop by, she said softly. We're going home together tonight, aren't we? I replied, trying to smile, hoping to deflect the rising tension. She paused. Then asked quietly, is there something you want to tell me? My stomach dropped. This wasn't good. And this wasn't the time or place to have this conversation. She waited, giving me a chance. When I didn't say anything, she finally said, rough day at work? We can talk about it tonight if you want. I nodded, relieved. Yeah, maybe that's better. She sighed. Right. By the way, where's the bracelet I gave you the other day? I froze. She was talking about the bracelet she picked out after receiving her first intern paycheck, a simple gold chain she had insisted on buying me, dragging me to the jewelry counter herself. It's right, I started, reaching instinctively for my left wrist. But what my fingers touched wasn't the bracelet. It was Liam's Rolex. A chill swept over me. Ava saw the hesitation in my eyes. In a flash, she grabbed my wrist and yanked up my sleeve. Where did you get this? She hissed, her voice low but cutting. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She stared into my eyes. Waiting. Demanding. Ava. I can explain. Smack. The slap landed hard across my face. And without another word, she turned and stormed off, leaving me standing there, stunned and speechless. She hadn't even seen the house I bought for her yet. And I still hadn't found the right time to tell her the truth about who I really was. But she found out anyway. The worst way possible. Now she thought I had been hiding everything on purpose. You made me feel like an idiot all this time, Ava said, her voice shaking with anger. And just like that, she vanished from my life. For days, I didn't see her. She took time off work, disappeared without a word. I went to her apartment, tried knocking again and again. She didn't open the door. The only one who answered me was her fat, grumpy cat. Meow. It sounded accusatory. Even the cat was mad at me. I sat in my office, staring blankly at the mess of papers in front of me, wondering how the hell I was supposed to fix this. How do you apologize for lying about who you are, when the truth was the only thing she ever wanted? Just then, Haley appeared by my desk. "Sir, here's some water." She wore that professional, plastic smile, no longer afraid of me the way she used to be. "I can help organize these files if you want," she offered, her eyes scanning the scattered documents like a shark circling prey. Of course. That's what she was really after. "Sure," I said, waving her on. She could look all she wanted. Everything she saw was what I let her see. Haley had been feeding information to Logan. Frequently. Eventually, the two of them got close, too close. But Sloane found out. And when she did, she snapped. She dragged Haley to the club one night and smashed her head against the table, again and again. "Try stealing my man again and see what happens, bitch." The more Sloane raged, the more Haley's hatred for her deepened. There was no turning back now. The two of them were at war. Meanwhile, under my subtle guidance, Logan moved forward with his secret partnership with the bidding company. He leaked more and more confidential intel from Sterling Capital Group, believing it would secure his future stake in the upcoming mega contract. His trust in me grew deeper by the day. He even handed over full control of his stock portfolio. But what he didn't see coming was the crash. Stocks he thought were safe suddenly plummeted. In a booming market, his holdings were the only ones sinking like lead. He was bleeding money. Worse than the last time. "It's okay," I said calmly. "The market's strong. You've still got time to recover." But as Logan scrambled to salvage what was left, the bidding company came calling. They wanted to move forward with the next stage of the partnership, an investment that would guarantee him a cut of the big project once the deal went through. There was just one problem. Logan was broke. Flat out broke. But he couldn't say no. And that desperation was exactly what I'd been waiting for. That's when he started eyeing the company's accounts. Corporate embezzlement. The oldest trick in the book. "I wouldn't go there if I were you," I warned him. "That kind of move doesn't end well." But Logan was too far gone. "Relax," he waved me off, already lost in his fantasies. "I'll just borrow a little. Sterling Capital's got so much money they won't even notice. Once the profits from the deal come in, I'll plug the hole. No one'll know." He couldn't wait to sink his teeth into that big, juicy contract. It had consumed him. "I don't know, this feels like a line we shouldn't cross." Logan narrowed his eyes at me, suspicion flickering behind them. "You're getting cold feet now? After all this?" Then, as if catching himself, he softened. "All right, maybe you're right. I'll think about it some more." But he didn't. He did it anyway. He moved the money, but behind my back. Because in his eyes, I was no longer useful. A disposable pawn. And he wasn't planning on sharing his prize. What he didn't know was that I already had the evidence. Every transfer. Every shadowed account. Every dirty dollar. He dug the pit with his own hands. Now there was no getting out. Meanwhile, all of Kingsport had its eyes on Liam. Rumor was, something big was coming. Major players across the city were watching me, tailing my moves, trying to sniff out a way in. Even the slightest leak had sparked a frenzy. Rival firms began pouring millions into their own bids, throwing their top people at the problem. They were convinced they had a shot. But they were wrong. That contract? It was never real. Just bait. A decoy to distract the wolves, to make them reveal their teeth. What I was really building was a foundation. A charity. You see, in this world, bullying isn't a schoolyard issue, it's a systemic cancer. There are people, kids, adults, who suffer every day because of things they never chose. Their looks. Their background. Their disabilities. They get mocked, isolated, pushed to the edges of life. No one stands up for them. And if they do try to fight back, the abuse only gets worse. So they stay quiet. They cry in silence. I was going to change that. This foundation would shine a light on what people like to pretend doesn't exist. Make it loud. Unignorable. But to make an impact, I needed a face. Someone who could draw eyes. So I reached out to Sloane. Offered her a massive deal to headline the campaign's first PSA. She didn't hesitate. It's a charity film, so there are a few special conditions, I told her team. No scandals. No drama. Clean image only. Sloane leaned hard into the activist image. Her PR team flooded the media with glowing profiles, her in soft lighting, feeding homeless kids and hugging survivors. She signed the contract, one with a sky-high breach penalty. We're locked in. No surprises, her agent promised me, beaming. But in this town, there's always a surprise coming. The day of the bid finally arrived. To everyone's shock, Sterling Capital Group pulled out. Just like that. Panic swept through the competing firms. Chaos. No one could understand what went wrong. Why would Sterling step back from a project of this magnitude? But they didn't realize. I never wanted it. Logan, on the other hand, had bet everything. The firm he colluded with dropped him the second Sterling backed out. They declared the deal void. Just like that. Every dollar Logan poured in vanished into thin air. Not only was he broke, he was deep in a hole he couldn't crawl out of. I told you, I said, looking down at him on the rooftop. You don't mess with company funds. But you wouldn't listen. And now look where that got you. Logan stood at the edge, eyes wild with rage, chest heaving. This is all your fault, he screamed. You're the one who told me to go after that project. You said Liam would be gunning for it, now it's gone, everything's gone. You set me up. His voice cracked with desperation, but mine remained cold, almost amused. I warned you about going after Liam. But no, you had to play dirty. You thought you were clever. And this ending? You chose it. Then something shifted in his expression. He started to put the pieces together. You were working for him. You were Liam's guy all along. I smiled, slow and sharp. No. I am Liam. Silence. It took him a full 10 seconds to process. And then, it hit. You son of a bitch, he roared, lunging at me like a wild dog. He'd always wanted to kill Liam. Too bad he never realized Liam had been right in front of him the whole time. He swung. I dodged. And dropped him with a single punch. He hit the rooftop gravel with a dull thud, groaning, wind knocked out of him. I crouched beside him, my voice quiet, but heavy with finality. Let me spell it out for you, since you're clearly too stupid to keep up. My father might have raised you, trained you, but that never made you his son. You had a better life than most people ever dream of. But you threw it all away. Out of greed. I stood, straightened my jacket, looked down at him with disgust. There's only one heir to Sterling Capital. There's only one son of Richard Sterling. And that's me. Logan's eyes burned with hatred, veins bulging in his neck, lips curled with fury and shame. But it was over. He finally saw the truth, too late. He clawed his way to his feet. Blood at the corner of his mouth. Madness in his eyes. Then he lunged. Both hands wrapped around my throat, squeezing hard. My breath caught. My vision blurred. Pain exploded behind my eyes. I was just about to kick him off, hard. When something in the background caught my attention. A flash of motion. A shadow behind him. I froze. Before I could move, Logan was yanked off me with a force that made the rooftop quake. And then... bam! A flying kick sent him crashing across the rooftop, sliding like a ragdoll on concrete. "Are you okay, Ava?" She knelt beside me, eyes wide, her breath ragged from the sprint, hands gently brushing my throat. I coughed, barely able to speak, but I smiled through the pain. "You saved me again." From below, sirens wailed. Blue and red lights flashed as a swarm of officers poured onto the roof. They tackled Logan, who was now twitching and foaming at the mouth, and dragged him away in cuffs. I didn't look back. Because Ava was there. And I couldn't let go. I held her tightly. Buried my face in her shoulder. Laughed like a man who had just escaped hell. "I missed you so damn much." That night, I took her home. To my real home. The Sterling estate. She met Richard. And Victoria. Victoria didn't say much at first. Just eyed Ava the way she always does, with cold elegance, like weighing a diamond in her palm. But this time, she didn't reach for the polishing cloth. She simply said, "Sit. Join us for dinner." And we did. Only this time, the dining table wasn't as long. And the chairs weren't spaced so far apart. Victoria even passed Ava a dish herself. Richard looked like he might cry out of sheer relief. They didn't say it, but this was a beginning. After dinner, Victoria pulled Ava aside. When she came back, I asked, "What did she say?" Ava smirked. "She said if you ever act up, I'm allowed to slap you around." Well, I coughed, technically she already did that once. The wedding was set. Sterling Capital issued an official statement. The company's heir would be married on his 23rd birthday. The media erupted. Rumors swirled. Paparazzi camped outside the estate. And somehow, everyone thought it was Sloane who landed the ring. Congratulatory bouquets flooded her agency. Bloggers dubbed her the queen who tamed the young lion. She soaked it in like champagne. Until the truth hit. And when it did, the look on her face? Worth every moment of the wait. Sloane was spiraling. She had no idea what the hell was going on. Sterling Capital just announced that their heir was getting married on his 23rd birthday, and her phone blew up with messages of congratulations. The problem? She hadn't heard a damn word from Liam. "Oh, come on," she forced a tight smile at the agency's PR staff. "He's probably planning a surprise proposal. You guys just spoiled it." But the room went quiet. Nobody was buying it. She laughed, but it came out dry. Her hands were shaking. She grabbed her purse and made a beeline for the door. First call, Logan. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Panic set in. So she called Haley. But Haley, the little rat, had vanished too. After Logan's arrest, she'd resigned and disappeared, afraid of being dragged down in a corporate espionage scandal. That didn't stop Sloane. She tracked her down. Outside an old apartment block, Haley was wheeling a suitcase when Sloane leapt on her like a wolf in stilettos. "You were supposed to keep me updated. How the hell is Liam getting married and I'm the last one to know?" She grabbed Haley by the wrist. "Where's Logan? You hiding with him now? Planning to run off into the sunset together, is that it?" Haley was dazed, barely able to keep up. I don't know where he is," she stammered. "I swear. After Sterling pulled out of the bid, he just vanished." "You're lying." Sloane snapped. She slammed Haley against the brick wall. Fists flew. Screams echoed. Someone called the cops. Sloane was still shrieking when the officers dragged her away. Haley was taken out on a stretcher, bloody and broken. And then it was my birthday. 23 candles. And a wedding. Kingsport's elite all showed up, CEOs, politicians, old money families, tech giants, fashion royalty. The cathedral was packed. Even my high school classmates got invitations. Most thought it was a prank. But when Ava and I walked out, hand in hand, in full regalia, silence swept the entrance hall. "Ethan?" Someone gasped. "You're Liam." They stared like I was a ghost from their past wearing a billionaire's suit. I smiled politely. They didn't know what to say. And then, "Let me in. Don't you know who I am?" Screaming erupted at the gates. A woman in smeared lipstick, torn heels, and wild hair was fighting with the security guards. Sloane. Fresh out of holding. Fresh out of her mind. And foaming at the mouth with one last shred of delusion. That this day belonged to her. She doesn't deserve to be Mrs. Sterling. Sloane shrieked at the top of her lungs, completely losing it at the gates of the wedding venue. She's a nobody. I'm the real Mrs. Sterling. Liam and I, we were engaged. Everyone knew it. Her mascara had melted into raccoon streaks. Her heels wobbled. Her dress looked like it had been slept in. The security guards tried to hold her back, but... "Let her in," I said calmly. She stormed inside like a madwoman unchained, her hair sticking to her sweaty face, her voice hoarse and furious. "You bitch," she pointed a trembling, manicured finger straight at Ava. "What the hell did you do to seduce him? He's mine. He was always mine." Ava rolled up her sleeves. "I've got this." But I gently pulled her behind me. "Easy," I whispered. "You'll ruin the dress." I turned to Sloane. "When exactly was I yours?" She scoffed, eyes flashing. "Did I ask you a damn thing?" The entire hall gasped. Some of our former classmates were visibly stunned. Sloane still had no clue who I really was. "I want to see Liam," she screamed again. "Tell Liam to get his ass out here right now." At that moment, a server approached and bowed slightly. "Mr. Sterling, sir, everything's ready. The ceremony is about to begin." I nodded. Sloane's eyes slowly scanned me from head to toe. The custom-tailored tuxedo. The way everyone looked at me. And finally, the name. Mr. Sterling. Her lips parted. Her body swayed. "Wait, what? You're Liam?" Her voice cracked. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her brain, trying, and failing, to line up the Ethan she thought she knew with the Liam she thought she'd own. It didn't compute. It broke her. "Let's go," I said to Ava, wrapping my arm around her and walking forward. We passed by Sloane. Behind us, guests followed. Then we heard it. A heavy, pitiful thud. I turned around. Sloane had collapsed to her knees on the marble floor, her shoulders shaking, tears streaking down her face. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't. I'm sorry." As if repeating it enough times would undo the damage. As if it could give her a second chance at a story she never earned. But there was no second chance. Not anymore. The truth was out. Liam was no longer just the rumored heir of Sterling Capital. He was Sterling Capital. The whispers about me, about disfigurement, about exile, vanished into thin air. What remained was a man standing tall, in love, and unapologetically whole. I turned back to Ava. Her eyes glistened. Her smile was soft and certain. I looked into those eyes as I slid the ring onto her finger. "I do. She whispered the words like a promise etched in stone. Every major platform streamed our wedding in real time. It wasn't just a ceremony. It was a reckoning. And a new beginning. Haley lay in her hospital bed, strapped to monitors and IVs, her eyes flickering with fading clarity. Then, the television in the corner flashed with breaking news. A lavish wedding. A glittering ballroom. The bride glowing. The groom powerful. Liam. Ava. Haley lifted a trembling hand, pointing at the screen. The gesture alone drained her. The spoonful of food the nurse had coaxed into her mouth spilled back out as bile and rice dribbled from her lips. Her brain had taken too much damage. After Sloane's brutal attack, doctors said she'd likely never leave that bed again. But Sloane's reckoning came quickly. The short film for the charity, her big, philanthropic comeback, hadn't even aired yet, and the internet was already ablaze. Shocking video. Actress assaults woman in public, revealed to be the daughter of a powerful mogul. The footage of her savagely beating Haley on a grimy city street went viral within hours. People recognized her instantly. Sloane, face twisted in rage, heels stomping, fists flying. Her father pulled every string he could. He called studios, platforms, lawyers, influencers. But it was pointless. Because the one pushing the video the hardest was me. Her world unraveled. Sponsors vanished. The studio backed out. The nonprofit sued her for violating her zero violence clause. She owed millions in damages. And then the final blow came. The police showed up with a warrant. Haley had reported her for drug use. Barely conscious, barely able to move, Haley had scribbled down every sordid detail she could remember, shaky handwriting on a stained piece of paper. It was her final act of revenge. Two girls who once ruled the halls of our school with cruelty and entitlement. Both of them now ruined. Their reign of terror collapsed into ashes. A few days later, Ava and I drove out to the edge of the city. We came to a quiet cemetery nestled between old trees and misty hills. There, in a shaded corner, stood a simple headstone. Mr. Carter. Our old teacher. He had passed away recently, cancer, they said. Today was his burial. Only a handful of family members stood by the grave. And us. Two of his former students. Thank you both, said his widow, her voice small and tired. We had to, Ava replied softly. He was our teacher. The woman's eyes welled. He taught all those years. Decades. And in the end, only you two showed up. She was wrong. Only Ava came for him. I hadn't planned to be here at all. As we turned to leave, the sky opened up. A soft, steady rain began to fall. No thunder. No lightning. Just the quiet kind of rain that feels more like grief than weather. We walked in silence. Soaked and remembering. Embezzlement. Corporate espionage. Attempted murder. Logan was convicted on multiple felony charges. The sentence? 30+ years behind bars. No parole. No comeback arc. His fall from grace served as a clear warning shot to every one of my father's illegitimate children. At 23, my father gave me a gift. Not a watch. Not a sports car. He handed me 100% of Sterling Capital Group. Every single share. Every voting right. I was no longer just the heir. I was the empire. And I made sure the world knew it. I stood before the cameras, Kingsport's skyline behind me, and declared. If I die before I turn 50, Sterling Capital Group will be dissolved. Every asset will be liquidated. Every share dismantled. The entire estate will be transferred to a philanthropic trust I've already established. Without me, Sterling Capital Group will cease to exist. Let them chew on that. Anyone plotting to take me out? They wouldn't inherit a thing. In fact, they'd watch their only source of protection crumble into dust. No throne. No spoils. No empire. Just ash. And frankly, I always thought Victoria had been overreacting all those years. Her constant paranoia about the other sons? The competition? She really didn't have to worry. Those so-called brothers of mine? Soft. Spoiled. Clueless. Raised on yachts and private chefs, not ambition. Some never finished high school. A few got dumped in European boarding schools and never came back. None of them even knew how a company operated, let alone how to run one. Richard raised them like pets. Fed, housed, tolerated. But never groomed to rule. He gave them allowances. He gave me a legacy. So yeah. Maybe he loved all his kids, in his own twisted way. But the only woman he ever truly respected? Was my mother. When I said that out loud over dinner, Victoria glared at me. Ungrateful brat, she snapped. You and that old bastard deserve each other. Then she packed her bags and left. 1 city per week. 1 country per month. Said she was finally going to see the world now that her job, raising me, was done. Married life with Ava felt like watching spring bloom in fast forward. Together, we ran Sterling Capital Group, and under our joint leadership, the company soared. The charity foundation we launched, originally focused on anti-bullying initiatives in schools, grew rapidly, drawing attention from across the country. Juvenile violence isn't just a phase. It needs national attention. Every victim deserves the right to say no, and be heard. We expanded the fund. More resources flowed into underprivileged communities. We built schools, improved local education systems, and gave scholarships to kids who'd once believed they'd never escape the violence of their childhood. And we didn't stop there. We also launched a foundation for stray animals. Abandoned cats and dogs now had safe shelters, warm food, and loving volunteers. Ava said every creature deserved a second chance, and I agreed. Ava was thriving. Her title may have been Mrs. Sterling, but she never leaned on my name. Every promotion, every boardroom win, every press quote, she earned it. Step by step. Footprint by footprint. Clear. Steady. Proud. Keep this up, I teased one evening, sprawled on the new couch with a few fat cats draped over me, and you'll be sitting in my chair before long. We just moved into a new house. Much bigger than the one I first bought her years ago. She wanted room for a nursery now. Oh, don't worry, she smirked. If you're not performing, I'll gladly fire you and take over. Just make sure I'm still on payroll. You better not go easy on me either. No more leaving blank answers like you did back in school just to let me win. You still remember that? She laughed, tossing a throw pillow at me. It hit me square in the face. The cats scattered like popcorn. I'm just gifted with a long memory, I grinned. Now come on. Time to clean up. Yes, sir. I scrambled to help her finish unpacking. By the time we'd settled everything, night had fallen. We collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Didn't even bother to turn on the lights. Meow. 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 Our cats, surprisingly considerate, retreated quietly to their cozy corner. We were left in a warm, purring silence. After a long pause, she whispered. Liam. Yeah. Thank you. For what? For this, she said softly. For giving me a home. Her words triggered a memory. The night I first confessed. I like you, Ava, I'd said. What was that? She'd replied, feigning confusion. Even now, she still pulled that same old trick. Don't fake it, I chuckled. I know you've got your contacts in. But the lights are off, she said with a playful shrug. I really can't hear you. She made me say it again. And again. And I didn't mind one bit. I said I like you, Ava. Still can't hear you. Ava, I like you. Then I pulled her into my arms. And kissed her.